What's up, everybody? My name is Brad and welcome back to the channel. Today we're here for a book review. It's been a while since I've done a book review, but that's what we're here to do today. And today I'm going to talk about My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. This is his newest book put out by Saga Press, and it just came out the other day on August 31st. I was lucky enough, I got an e-arc through NetGalley way back in March or April or so is when I read this book. We had a big buddy read. A bunch of us got it and read it together. So it's been a while since I have read it. But it's actually the second Stephen Graham Jones book I've read this year. Back in January or February, I read The Only Good Indians. And that book I absolutely loved. It's definitely in contention for my number one book of the year still. And it's now, September when I'm filming this video. So I read that one 8 or 9 months ago. Still probably my number one book of the year. As far as My Heart is a Chainsaw, I really liked it. They're both vastly different books. I liked The Only Good Indians more, but My Heart is a Chainsaw, it was still really good. Like I said, they're really, really different. But today we're here to talk about My Heart is a Chainsaw, not The Only Good Indians. So let's segue into horror movies real quick, and specifically slasher films. And this has to do with the book we're talking about today. If I had to pick one subgenre of horror film, I think slashers would be my favorite ones. You know, you have Michael Myers in Halloween, which Halloween, the original one by John Carpenter, that is probably my favorite horror movie of all time. You have Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th series. You have Ghostface from Scream, on and on and on. There's just something about these mask killers, especially the older movies like 80s, early 90s or so, that I just really, really enjoy, that are some of my favorite horror films to watch. And is it a nostalgia thing? Maybe so. I'm not sure. But I remember, as a kid, spending the night at a friend's house, staying up all night, eating cold pizza, drinking our weight in Mountain Dew, and watching horror movies, slashers specifically, on TV, all throughout the night. Watching these mass killers on screen, just hunt down these teenagers most of the time and just brutally murdering them, getting to experience these jump scares on screen, but knowing deep down inside that I was safe. I was at a friend's house, we're in their room, nothing is really going to happen. The boogeyman isn't real, or is he? Now take that slasher film, smash it, mush it down, convert it into a novel, and that's what you have here with this book, My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. It is a love letter, more so than any other book I've ever read. It is a love letter to the slasher film. So enter our protagonist, Jade. Jade, she's a teenager, she's Native American, she's a bit of an outcast, a bit of a loner, but she is obsessed. And I mean, she is absolutely obsessed with horror films and slasher films in particular. And honestly, throughout the beginning of the book, I found her to be a bit unlikable. I really didn't connect with her. She kind of got on my nerves a little bit. But unlikable might not be the right word for it. Maybe overbearing might be a better word to describe Jade. Jade is all about the slasher. She's full of passion and knowledge of the genre. She lives and breathes all things slasher 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it got to the point in one part of the book where she was so hopeful with like every fiber in her being that an actual killer would come to her town of Proof Rock and start murdering people in her town just so she could live and breathe the slasher experience. That's how much she enjoyed slasher films and loved slasher films. That's how far her obsession went, that she actually wanted to be a part of a real life slasher film. And that was for me where she was a bit overbearing. Her obsession went a bit too far for me for a little while. Jade, she was just too much for me up to a certain point. I wasn't sure if she was just completely crazy. Is she off a rocker? I really wasn't sure what was going on with her or what to make of a character who wanted people to die around her so she could experience a slasher firsthand. But then that's when Jones's expert storytelling and his ability to craft great characters kicked in, and it transformed Jade from someone I wasn't sure if I liked too much to me viewing her in a completely different light. There is a revelation of understanding that happens concerning Jade and why she is so absorbed and obsessed with these slasher films that I won't give away here. I'll let you have that moment of discovery for yourself. but suffice it to say, it completely changed my outlook and opinion on Jade as a character. Fortunately for Jade, or maybe unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, blood starts to spill and people around her hometown start to be killed off one by one by one. Is it a mass killer that's actually on the loose? Is Jade living the slasher experience firsthand now? Or maybe is it something darker and more sinister from the town's past that has come back for revenge? With all of her years of accumulated slasher film knowledge, Jade is the perfect person to be thrust into the scenario and predict who will be the next person to die a gruesome death, what are the killer's motives, who is the man or woman behind the mask, and who will be that final girl left standing bloodied but not beaten by the time the proverbial credits roll. This is not a fast-paced slasher with a super tight hour-and-a-half runtime. After the bloody and brutal opening scene, the book seems to switch gears. We change lanes and we coast in the slow lane for a while. I'm all for a slow burn of a book, but this one was a bit too slow at times, even for me. And if I had one complaint about the book, it would be sort of the pacing. We kick off with a bang, and then we sort of really slow for a while. Not much happens. It's just sort of backstory, getting to know Jade, getting to know the characters around Prufrock, sort of the history of it. But there's not a lot of action that goes on. But then once you hit around that 60% mark, hold on to your hats. Once we get into that third and final act, it seems like Jones just dumps gasoline onto the fire and sets up one of the most frantic and frenzied conclusions to a book that I have ever read. It'll leave you gasping for breath by the time you're done. My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. It pays homage to the great films in the slasher genre, all while carving out a unique place of its own. But it's far more than just a fun, bloody, and mindless slasher. Jade's story is about seeking acceptance, about how we all have this inherent need to feel loved and protected, no matter how tough we might act on the exterior. About finding that one person who would be willing to fight for us as much as we'd be willing to fight for them. It's a slasher with a beating, revving heart, just like a chainsaw. And that's it. That's been my review of My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. The pacing was a bit slow at times, but other than that, I had a lot of fun with the book. If you're into slasher films as much as I am, I think you should check this one out, pick it up. It might be the book for you. But that's all I have for you guys today. So thank you for spending your time with me. Again, my name is Brad, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.